Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me. In this video, we're going to talk about long division. Let's get started. In this lesson, we're going to talk about long division. Before we get started, there's some terminology that I'd like to review. First of all, when we're looking at fractions like this, a over b, I always want you to remember that a fraction line means divide. You'll also need to know the names of the top and the bottom of the fraction. The top of the fraction is called the numerator, and the bottom of the fraction is called the denominator. We'll of course also be doing long division, so you'll need to know the names of the parts of the division house. First, the answer you get when you divide is called a quotient. What we divide by is the divisor, and the number we're dividing is the dividend. It always goes in the house. To help you remember that, I have a silly phrase. The dividend and the house. I'll say it one more time. The dividend and the house. The dividend always goes inside the house. Let's go ahead and try some examples. 16 over 8. Fraction line means divide, and I know 16 divided by 8 is 2. This one doesn't need long division. I just wanted to show you how to use that fraction line piece before we got any further. This fraction actually has a special name. Notice that the number on top is larger than the number on the bottom. That makes this fraction an improper fraction. Improper fractions can be changed into mixed numbers. Watch. 13 divided by 4. I'll ask myself, how many times does 4 go into 13? Well, I know that 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 times 4 is 16, which is too many. 4 times 3 is 12, which means I'm 1 away from 13. That means my remainder is 1, and my denominator will always stay the same. Now you can see that this improper fraction has turned into a mixed number, but they both mean the same thing. Now, even though I can change 13/4 to a mixed number, when I use long division, that will help me change it to a rational number as a decimal. Let me show you what I mean. 13 divided by 4. I'm going to set up my long division house, and I know that the top number is the number that I'm starting with, or my dividend, which goes in the house. I'm going to divide it by 4. Now, let's go ahead and start. How many times does 4 go into 1? It does not. How many times does 4 go into 13? It goes in 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12, and then I'll subtract. 13 minus 12 is 1. In previous years, you would have said 3 remainder 1 and stopped. Now you're getting older. It's time to get rid of this remainder and turn it into a decimal. The way that we do this is add a decimal and a 0 and bring the decimal to your answer. Try to repeat that in your head constantly. Add a decimal and a 0 and bring the decimal to your answer. I'll say that again in a minute. Now you may be wondering why we added a 0, and we did that so that we could bring an infinite number of zeros down to help us continuing to divide. We're not going to need that many, hopefully, this time. Let's go ahead and check. 4 goes into 10. How many times? 2. 2 times 4 is 8. I subtract again. 10 minus 8 is 2. Remember, there's an infinite number of zeros you can pull down. So I'll pull down one more and ask myself, how many times does 4 go into 20? 4 fits into 20 exactly 5 times because 5 times 4 is 20, which means I'll no longer have a remainder and I can finally stop dividing. if I were to bring down another 0, I would see that 4 goes into 0 0 times, and I would have an infinite number of zeros. You don't need to write those zeros. I can change 13/4 equals 3 and 1/4, which also equals 3.25, or mathematically speaking, we would read this as 3 and 25/100ths. Our last example is a regular fraction, 4/5. I know that 4 is going to be divided by 5, so I'll set up my long division house and put the dividend as the numerator and the divisor as the denominator. Now this time it's going to be a little tricky because 5 does not go into 4, and you're starting out and you might automatically be like, okay, well now what? Think of that phrase. Add a decimal and a 0 and bring the decimal to your answer. Now, 5 does not go into 4, but it does go into 4D exactly 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40, which means there'll be no remainder, and I can stop. 4/5 is equal to 0.8. Mathematically speaking, this is 8/10. Just to recap, in this video, we learned how to do long division. We also learned that a fraction has a numerator on the top and a denominator on the bottom. We also learned that a quotient is the answer to a division problem, where the divisor is what we divide by, and that the dividend and n goes in the house. See you next time. Hey guys, it's Jessica. Thank you so much for learning with me. If you enjoyed this mini lesson, like this video and share it with your friends. And remember, subscribe to Just Focus Online Learning for more amazing educational videos.